This video is going to explore how to answer a question 1 in the Art and Design Studies element of National 5. So, what is the question paper actually asking you to do? The purpose of the question paper is to assess how well you understand how art and designers use different techniques in their practice. The question paper is made up of studied questions in which you will explore the work of specific artists and learn that information to then answer questions. And there are other questions which will ask you to respond to unseen works of art and design. Today we're going to focus on question 1, which specifically asks you to talk about 2 artists that you have studied. So what do you need to know to answer a question 1? So you need to know the names of 2 artists and 2 paintings, one by each of them, and be able to explain the techniques and the visual elements and the composition that they have used within their painting. You will be asked about 3 specific prompt words, and you will have to explore and explain your understanding of how the artist uses these within the pieces of work that you have chosen to talk about. You therefore have to have a really good understanding of the paintings that you have studied in class, and that might be still life paintings or portraiture paintings or landscape. You finally have to answer the question about the influences on these artists. So you pick one of those artists and you explore in a little more detail specific influences within their life that has had an impact on their work. Let's look at this in a bit more detail. So here is a question 1 with part A and part B. I would recommend that you spend about 18 minutes on part A. It's worth 10 marks. On part B, the influences question, I would recommend that you spend about 9 minutes reading over and writing out your response to the things which have influenced the artist. Let's break this down and look at this in a little bit more detail. So, the first part of the question is asking us to talk about 2 artworks. That might be 2 paintings or 2 sculptures, but you will have studied these in class. It's really important that you know them inside out. Then you will be asked 3 prompt words. This is the surprise part of it. There are lots of different prompt words, but the question will only ask you about 3. So it's important that you have a good knowledge of all of them so that you can respond to the ones that are picked. The last part has an extra part of the question which asks you to choose between one of the artworks and explain why you think it has the most visual impact. It is worth 2 points. Part B is asking you to only look at one artist. Within that artist's work, they want to hear about the things which have influenced that artist specifically and where you can see the impact of that on specific artworks. You don't have to just talk about the one painting by that artist. You can at this point bring in any other pieces of art that you understand about the artist's work to show that you have a really good knowledge of their work. So let's break down the part A question. Remember, you can pause this video at any point and take some notes. So part A is worth 10 marks, and we just mentioned there that we have to look at 2 artworks. If we have a look at this, these prompt words here, composition, texture and style, are the things that are going to form the bulk of our answer. By responding to these things, the maximum that we can get is 8 marks. That means that we probably have to say about 3 things for each of composition, texture and style. If we got all those, that would give us 8 marks out of 10 so far. Remember, you've got 2 artists, so you could say something about composition in your first artist, 1 point, something about composition for your second artist, another point, and then something else choosing from either of the artists. Then you would move on to texture and do the same. 1 point about texture in your first artist, 1 point about texture in your second artist, and then a free choice. And finally, the same for style. At the end, and this is the part that a lot of people miss, there's this sentence which asks, which of the 2 artworks has the most visual impact? Give 2 justified reasons. If you don't answer that part of the question, the maximum you can get is 8 marks. So it's really important to remember to pick out one of these artworks as your favourite or the one which you think has the most visual impact. Remember not to repeat any of the things that you've already said. So if you're choosing artwork 1, don't mention anything to do with composition or texture or style, because the chances are you'll already have mentioned it in this part up here. Instead, choose another prompt word that you haven't mentioned. So for example, colour or line. That way, you're guaranteed to get the points for those 2 marks at the end, hopefully meaning that you get 10 marks out of 10. So the prompt words that you need to use or you need to be aware of are here. You get 1 from composition or media handling, 1 from the visual elements, and 1 from scale, style, subject matter, and mood and atmosphere. So you need to have a good understanding of all of those. A good way to practice and revise for this is to get somebody to choose 3 prompt words randomly from here and then write down everything that you can remember about your 2 artists' work, or create mind maps, slowly going through each of the points that you would say about these prompt words. Another good way might be making flashcards. Put the prompt word on one side of the flashcard and on the other write down the key points about your artist's work in terms of that prompt word. So I would recommend that you use the prompt words as subheadings within your answer. That makes it really clear for the marker to see that you understand what you're being asked about and you're structuring your answer in a really clear, organised way. Let's have a look at how this will look overall in your answer. So, with our answer structure, we're going to think about our introduction and we're going to mention the artists and the paintings that we'll look at. Then our next section is going to be our prompt word 1, which in this question is composition, and we're going to make 3 points about each of the artist's work. 3 points in total, remember, not 3 about artist 1 and 3 about artist 2, but 3 points in total. Then we're going to move on to texture, which is our prompt 2, and again make 3 points. Style, which is our prompt 3, and make 3 points to make sure that we have covered ourselves. Finally, we're going to use visual impact and our opinion as our conclusion to say which we prefer and why. Remember not to mention anything about composition, texture or style, because the chances are you will be repeating yourself. For visual impact, bring in other prompt words such as colour or tone or line. Hopefully that gives you an overview of how you should structure your answer. Remember, the prompt words will change, so you can practice using this structure but changing the prompt words. Pause the video just now and have a go at drawing out this diagram in a way that makes sense for you. Personalise it to the name of your artists and the names of the paintings. This again is a really good way to revise this information. You could have this on one sheet and it could be a great way for somebody to test you on the information you need to know for this question. So let's have a look at how we would go about writing an introduction. Remember, there's not really any marks available for this, so you don't want to spend a huge amount of time. This should be something that's pretty much pre-prepared and that you can get down on paper as soon as you go into the assessment. In here you can see the way that I've structured this. I'm trying to include the names of my artists, the names of the paintings, and I'm referring back to the question by mentioning the prompt words. Two artists I have studied in class who both paint still life are Samuel John Peploe and John Bellamy. In my answer, I'll discuss their use of composition, texture and style in Still Life by Peploe and The Mantelpiece by Bellamy. Remember to give your titles capital letters and name them by using the quotation marks. Once you've done this, you will move on to your first prompt word. So in this case, it is composition. I advise my pupils to write down composition as their heading and underline it. Then they're going to make your first point. So here we're saying something about the composition in still life being busy and overlapping objects. So we've made our point into here using that what, where, why, and we're explaining what the reason is and why the reason is that Peploe has used this. Note that I'm only talking about one painting in my first point. The composition in Still Life by Peploe features a busy arrangement of objects. That's my what. That's what I'm talking about. Where, such as the jug which overlaps the bottle. I'm specifically referring to something in the painting which I can see as evidence. This helps to create depth in the painting by showing the bottle is further behind the jug. This is my explanation why the artist has done that. For that point, I would get 1 mark. Then I would move on and I would talk about something else in relation to my other artist. So in contrast, the linear composition within Mantelpiece seems less staged, and by painting most of the objects in a similar plane, there's less distance created, making it look flatter. 1 mark. Again, I'm mentioning what, the linear composition. I'm telling where I see that by most of the objects on a similar plane and the impact of that. Why has the artist done it like that? It makes it look flatter. Then you would continue to do your third point for composition, hopefully gaining 3 marks. Then you would move on to prompt word 2, texture. You would do the same, heading, underline, and first point, second point, third point. Now we're going to have a look at the part B. The second part of this question is worth 5 marks, and I would recommend that you spend about 9 minutes on this. It's asking you to choose one of your artists. So the chances are that in class, you'll only have looked at influences for one of the artists. What you're being asked to do is you're being asked to think about the things in their life which have influenced them, maybe socially, culturally, or any other things in their life that have had an impact on their work. You are being asked to think about how those events or things that have happened directly impacted the work that that artist has created. So there's 2 points to this. I recommend that you mention 2 specific things which happened or which influenced the artist. Then go on and give examples where we can see the impact of that influence in the artwork. If you're confident enough now to have a go at structuring your answer, there are a couple of examples here which you could try. Remember though, with the slide with all the prompt words on it, you could create your own questions and have a go at answering these too. Here are a couple of examples to get you started. Remember, part A asks for 2 artists with 1 artwork for each one. Part B, you only need to speak about 1 artist and the things that have influenced that artist. Do your best. Well done.